There is a pipe coating that stops condensation permanently. It costs less than $2 to make. It uses two natural ingredients, requires no special tools, and once applied, it never needs to be replaced. Pipe fitters in the 1920s mixed it by hand in coffee cans and brushed it on in minutes. It worked for the life of the building. We did not stop using it because it failed. We stopped because a fix that lasts forever cannot be sold twice. A pipe that never sweats does not need a replacement sleeve from the hardware store every 3 years. This is the story of linseed oil and cork dust anti-sweat paste, the $2 permanent condensation barrier that protected American homes for decades, and how the insulation industry buried it to build a market worth billions. On March 31, 1912, a name appeared in the minutes of the Boston Chamber of Commerce, H. Rowland, a master pipe fitter, submitting a note to the Plumbing and Heating Committee. The city was expanding, and its new buildings faced a stubborn problem: cold water lines dripping with condensation, leaving rot and rust in their wake. Rowland's answer was not a complicated invention or a branded product. It was a recipe, written in plain language and backed by field results. The formula was 3 parts finely ground cork to 1 part boiled linseed oil, mixed until thick and spreadable. The paste was applied by brush, forming a continuous coat about a 1/4 inch thick. Within 24 to 48 hours, the mixture cured into a rubbery, water-resistant film that clung to the pipe with no seams or gaps. Rowland's note, preserved in the Chamber's report from 1912, described the result as self-leveling after application and hardening to a rubbery, water-resistant coating within 48 hours. This was not a folk remedy or an untested trick. Rowland's memorandum included observations from municipal steam mains, where the paste had already proven itself in service. He cited no proprietary chemicals, no need for patented tools, just cork dust, boiled linseed oil, and a little patience. The city's trade board adopted the recommendation, and the recipe began to circulate among Boston's pipe fitters and maintenance crews. The same proportions would later appear in technical manuals and trade guides across the country. Odell's Plumber's and Steam Fitters Guide, first published in 1915, repeated the 3-to-1 ratio and the overnight cure time, cross-referencing Rowland's original note for authority. The mixture's simplicity was its strength. Every ingredient could be bought by the bag or the gallon at any hardware supplier, and the cost for an entire building's worth of anti-sweat protection rarely topped $2. Rowland's 1912 recipe set a benchmark. It was the earliest documented, trade-validated solution to pipe sweating, clear, cheap, and permanent. The evidence was there in black and white, long before the era of disposable foam sleeves and planned obsolescence. Cork and linseed oil stand at the crossroads of ancient craft and industrial science. For centuries, shipwrights in the Mediterranean sealed hulls with cork, its honeycomb structure trapping air, resisting water, and holding fast against the relentless swell. Each cell, a microscopic bottle, locked in dry air and natural waxes. By the 1700s, cork was lining wine bottles, insulating early ice houses, and packing the holds of transatlantic steamers. The material's reputation stretched far beyond the trades. Naturalists cataloged its resilience, and engineers measured its low thermal conductivity, often as low as 0.04 watts per meter Kelvin, a figure that would later rival synthetic foams. Linseed oil, pressed from the seeds of flax, traveled a parallel path. Painters prized its ability to dry into a hard, waterproof film, forming the backbone of oil paints and marine varnishes. When heated with metallic dryers, it transformed, polymerizing into a flexible, water-resistant barrier. Shipyards brushed it on decks, joiners sealed window frames with it, and farmhands relied on it to preserve wooden tools through wet seasons. By the late 19th century, linseed oil was the tradesman's answer to rot, mold, and water ingress. Its chemistry proven in every climate, from the North Atlantic to the Mississippi Delta. Together, cork and linseed oil became more than the sum of their parts. The cork's closed cells blocked heat and moisture, and the oil sealed every granule, keeping out water and fungus. Pipe fitters, house painters, and shipbuilders all drew from the same well of knowledge, trusting that these simple, natural ingredients could outlast the latest manufactured promise. Manuals from the 1880s through the 1920s mention cork dust and boiled oil for everything from insulating pipes to patching leaks in brewery vats. The recipe Rowland put forward in 1912 was not a leap of faith, but the next step in a lineage stretching back generations. When Boston's Trade Board adopted his paste, they were leaning on centuries of collective experience, not just a clever shortcut. Across the trades, the message was clear. Durability wasn't a secret, it was common sense, until something changed. In 1926, the United States Navy Bureau of Yards and Docks issued a technical manual that codified the use of cork and boiled linseed oil paste as official pipe insulation, Recipe B, as it appeared in Section 3.4. This was not a fringe method or a regional shortcut. The Navy's specification called for field crews to mix the paste on site in 5-gallon cans, using the same proportions found in municipal manuals a decade earlier. Only steel or cast iron pipes were to be treated, and the manual cautioned against using the paste on lines carrying water above 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The endorsement was explicit. This mixture was the prescribed defense against condensation in naval facilities, from shipyards to shore installations. The Navy's own testing, recorded in the handbook, measured the thermal resistance of a 1-inch pipe coated in the paste at 0.46 watts per meter Kelvin, virtually identical to the mineral wool used in the same era. But the real evidence would come decades later, not from a lab, but from the bones of a working naval base. Between 1978 and 1982, Norfolk Naval Base underwent a massive overhaul of its steam distribution system. As contractors stripped away aging jackets from pipes laid before the First World War, they found something unexpected: a dark, rubbery layer still clinging to the metal, intact after more than 60 years in service. Preservation engineers collected samples from these original pipe runs, logging the building numbers, pipe tags, and precise thickness, typically around 4 millimeters. The samples were sent to the Naval Surface Warfare Center for analysis. In the laboratory, analysts prepared cross-sections and subjected them to Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. The results were unambiguous. The spectra showed a strong ester absorption band at 1,735 inverse centimeters, the chemical fingerprint of cured linseed oil. A secondary band at 1,630 inverse centimeters marked the presence of cork lignocellulose. The composition matched the Navy's own 1926 recipe, confirming that the paste had not only survived, but retained its essential chemistry decades after application. The Norfolk findings did more than corroborate a line in a forgotten manual. They provided physical, scientific proof that a mixture of cork and boiled linseed oil could outlast generations of repairs, weather, and neglect without the need for replacement or maintenance. The Navy's institutional memory, preserved in both paper and polymer, elevated this paste from trade lore to government standard. Here was a solution that endured not just in stories, but in steel and cellulose, still performing its intended function long after its recipe had disappeared from modern practice. In the Providence Preservation Society's restoration files from 1993, a fragment of pipe insulation, dark, pliable, and nearly forgotten, became the subject of forensic scrutiny. Preservation scientists at Brown University's Conservation Lab prepared samples for scanning electron microscopy, slicing thin cross-sections from the cured paste that had shielded the cast iron water mains of a 1905 pump house for nearly 8 decades. Under the microscope, the structure revealed itself. Millions of closed cork cells, each a sealed chamber of dry air, suspended in a continuous matrix of polymerized linseed oil. Energy-dispersive X-ray analysis confirmed the composition: organic cork granules, calcium traces, and a dense, cross-linked oil film. The scanning electron microscopy images left no doubt that the original recipe had not only survived, but preserved its insulating architecture long after modern foams would have crumbled. The science behind this endurance lies in the numbers. Laboratory measurements peg the thermal conductivity of dry, agglomerated cork at roughly 0.04 watts per meter Kelvin, a figure that matches or slightly exceeds the performance of new closed-cell polyethylene foam sleeves, which range from 0.036 to 0.04. The cork's cell walls, visible at the micron scale, trap air and block heat flow, while the oil binder forms a hydrophobic barrier that resists water ingress. Once the linseed oil cures, water vapor transmission drops to about 0.4 grams per square meter per day, comparable to modern wood preservatives and far lower than untreated cork. This low permeability is not just a chemical curiosity, it is the key to stopping condensation at its source. The real test comes with time. Foam insulation, celebrated for its high initial R value, tells a different story after years in service. Independent building science reports and manufacturer datasets agree. Within 7 years, closed cell foam sleeves lose up to 40% of their thermal resistance. The culprit is slow, relentless aging. Cell walls embrittle, micro cracks form, and humidity seeps in, raising the effective conductivity year by year. A foam sleeve that started with a K value of 0.036 may climb to 0.05 or higher, its protective margin shrinking with every season. In contrast, field surveys of cork linseed paste, whether in naval bases or historic homes, show negligible drift in performance. The polymerized oil locks the cork granules in place, and the absence of an air gap means no hidden condensation, no mold, no rot. The dew point mechanic, often overlooked in product brochures, is central to the paste's effectiveness. Condensation forms when the pipe surface drops below the ambient dew point, and a solid, continuous coat of cork and oil raises the surface temperature above that threshold, cutting off the cycle before it begins. In controlled tests, a 15-millimeter layer of cork paste kept pipe surfaces well above the dew point in typical basement conditions, while aged foam sleeves, degraded by years of exposure, risked falling below, inviting the very sweating they were meant to prevent. Preservation engineers have illustrated this with thermal imaging and dew point charts, showing the steady, unbroken barrier created by the old paste compared to the patchwork performance of modern replacements. What emerges from the lab is not just a tale of chemistry, but a challenge to the logic of disposability. The cork linseed paste, mixed by hand from two basic ingredients, achieved a level of permanence that modern synthetics struggle to match. Its cellular structure, confirmed by scanning electron microscopy and energy dispersive X-ray analysis, remains stable for generations. Its K value, measured in both field and laboratory, stands shoulder to shoulder with the best foam can offer without the curse of planned obsolescence. And its ability to prevent condensation is not theoretical, but proven in steel and cellulose, pipe after pipe, decade after decade. In the quiet rooms of preservation labs and the pages of forgotten manuals, the evidence accumulates. A $2 fix, buried by time and market forces, still outperforms the products that replaced it. By the early 1930s, the cork and linseed oil paste had become a fixture in the blueprints and maintenance logs of American infrastructure. City engineers in Chicago, New York, and Philadelphia ordered it by the barrel for new water mains and hospital extensions. School districts in the Midwest listed it in their building specifications, right alongside fire clay and galvanized pipe. Trade journals like Plumbing and Heating magazine ran recurring columns on field-mixed anti-sweat recipes, and the American Trade Board Bulletin in 1920 described the paste as standard for all municipal and industrial cold water lines. Inside factories, breweries, and power stations, maintenance crews kept 5-gallon cans of cork dust and boiled oil on hand. The paste became routine, applied to water lines in textile mills, steam mains in naval yards, and the sprawling networks beneath public schools. Navy engineers mixed it on-site for base housing and shore facilities, following the 1926 Bureau of Yards and Docks manual to the letter. The same recipe appeared in the maintenance guides of state hospitals, where condensation threatened not just pipes, but patient safety and building integrity. Procurement ledgers from the 1940s show municipal utilities purchasing cork dust by the ton and linseed oil in drums, with line items marked for pipe insulation, anti-sweat application. In Boston, the city's engineering department tracked annual consumption, noting that a single $2 batch could protect hundreds of feet of pipe for decades. Trade school syllabi from 1935 to 1950 included the recipe as a core skill, and instructors drilled apprentices on the importance of a seamless, continuous coat. The reach of the paste extended beyond the public sector. Private contractors installed it in the basements of department stores and the service corridors of hotels. Breweries in Milwaukee and St. Louis specified cork linseed paste for their chilled lines, citing its resistance to mold and its ability to withstand decades of washdowns and temperature swings. In every application, the logic was the same: a one-time fix, immune to rot, that needed no replacement or special upkeep. Across trades and regions, the paste was not an oddity or a local trick. It was the default answer to pipe sweating, woven into the fabric of American construction until the rules of the market began to change. In 1953, a full-page advertisement introduced styrofoam pipe sleeves to the American market. The pitch was clear: no mixing, no mess, just slip on and go. Within a decade, foam sleeves and preformed wraps crowded out the old cork and oil paste in hardware catalogs and trade supply sheets. The shift was not just about convenience. Manufacturers saw the promise of a product that required regular replacement, a built-in market cycle rather than a permanent fix. By the early 1960s, the language of permanence faded from product literature. Instead, catalogs boasted about easy installation and modern appearance, quietly omitting words like lifetime or permanent. The numbers followed. By 2023, the global pipe insulation market soared past $12 billion, driven not by longevity, but by turnover, foam sleeves, spray on barriers, and branded tapes, each with a shelf life measured in years, not decades. The economic incentive was simple: a $2 mix that lasted a lifetime, offered no repeat business. In contrast, a sleeve that degraded, yellowed, or cracked after a few seasons guaranteed a steady stream of sales. The change was not limited to product shelves. Plumbing school curricula, once filled with hand-mixing recipes and lessons on cork paste application, quietly dropped the old methods. By 1970, trade textbooks no longer listed the formula. Apprentices learned to measure, cut, and fit foam, but not to mix or brush on a permanent barrier. Manufacturer-sponsored guides replaced independent manuals, and the knowledge of the old paste faded from the next generation of plumbers. The logic of the marketplace left little room for a one-time fix. The disappearance of cork and linseed paste was not the result of a technical failure, but a structural omission, an entire category erased from memory because it threatened the economics of replacement. The $2 solution was buried, not by accident, but by design. Today, condensation damage costs U.S. property owners billions each year, while pipes meant to last a lifetime are wrapped in sleeves built to fail. The science behind cork and linseed oil hasn't changed, just the business model. When permanence threatens profit, even proven solutions can vanish. The real question is, what else have we buried for the sake of selling replacements? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.